Hey guys, since we are working on this essay called Animal Camouflage, I thought now would be a good time to say something about punctuation, especially commas in that essay. If you look carefully, you'll notice there are lots and lots and lots of commas. Now, in this class, we have a unit at the end of the semester all about punctuation where I summarize all these things, but I think it's useful to look at punctuation step by step along the way. So, in this unit, we're going to be talking about punctuation in the essay called Animal Camouflage. Let's make sure that we can make this smaller. There it is. Let's move it over here. I think that's good. We can see it. All right, so here's the essay called Animal Camouflage again. Look at the second sentence. It says, a small bird wants to avoid being seen by a hawk, comma, a zebra doesn't want the lion to find him, comma, and a flatfish would prefer that the shark swim quietly by. Okay, there are lots of things we could say about the grammar of that sentence, but let's look at the commas. So there are two of them. There's the hawk after the word hawk and after the word find him. What that is comma in lists. There are three things. So a small bird wants to avoid three things: being seen by a hawk, zebra doesn't want the lion to find him, and flatfish would prefer, etc. When you mention three or more things, whether they're in the object, prepositional phrases, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, whatever they are, if you mention three or more things, you put a comma between them. That's called comma in lists. L-I-S-T-S, lists. All right, here's another sentence with a comma. If an animal can't easily run away from its predator, how can it protect itself? Comma after predator. Ooh, remember the first unit about independent and dependent clauses? Well, the dependent clause here starts with if, which is an adverbial clause of cause. If an animal can't whatever, whatever, comma, how can it protect itself? This is an example where the dependent clause comes before the main clause, therefore there is a comma after the dependent clause. Dependent clause. That is also an example of my GS first rule of punctuation, which is put a comma after anything that comes before the subject of a main clause. Oh, more commas. One way that has evolved over time is protective coloring, comma, or camouflage. Very frequently in writing, we explain what we mean by saying something, something, comma, or something else. What that means is we're using synonyms. So easily run away for protective coloring, comma, or camouflage. So if you get the question on a test, what does camouflage mean? It means protective coloring. That's a way of explaining what a word means by using a comma and saying or something or other. The next example, there are lots of examples. The next example is in birds. For example, blah, blah, blah. When you put like for example or an expression like that, not at the beginning, but after the first two words, you separate it with commas. If you put for example first, you only have a comma after it. For example, in birds, blah, 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 blah. Then it goes on with a dependent clause. While adult males are brightly colored and very noticeable, breath, comma, the comma means take a breath, comma, blah, blah, blah. While adult females, while, that is an adverbial conjunction, and it's an adverb dependent clause in front of a main clause. See how I need those dependent and independent clause to explain it? In the yellow here, it says, consider the bright red cardinal, comma, a very common bird. When you use the reason for using a comma there is because a very common bird is actually short for a relative adjectival clause, which is a very common bird, right? So when you take out the which is, you use a comma instead. Then in the green, the male is bright and showy to attract a mate, but you hardly ever see the females. That's an example of your famous fanboys. B for but. If Fanboys, those letters begin words that are coordinate conjunctions. Oh boy, this is a lot. Coordinate conjunctions, and they combine two main clauses. Therefore, there is always a comma in front of that conjunction, not afterwards, in front. In blue, they are sandy brown with touches of red on the wings, comma, tail, comma, and breast. That's another example of a comma in lists. We have three things: wings, tail, and breast, and we separate them with commas after the first one, after the second one in front of the word and that's it. So here's another in, I guess it's pink. The pink here says, round markings of a rich color, comma, known as peacock blue. That's another example of which is known as peacock blue, but you take away the relative pronoun which, you take away the verb to be, and what you have left is a shortened version, or reduced clause, they call it in many grammar books, and you put a comma in front of it. The yellow here has another example of something that is put into the middle of a sentence. The real sentence is, the female has short tail feathers, main clause. You put in this called a peahen in the middle, and then you separate it out with commas. Whenever you put those things in the middle between the subject and the verb, always separate them with commas. Hui. Here's more. In short, comma, adopting camouflage colors. All right, this is an example of using a comma after anything that precedes or comes before the subject of a main clause. So adopting camouflage colors is a gerund subject, and the verb is helps, present tense, simple present tense, helps the female birds, etc., etc. You put a comma in front of anything that precedes the subject of a main clause. More green here. The lioness, comma, in particular, comma. Once again, you've put some words in between the subject and the verb. The subject is the lioness. The verb is looks. And you threw in particular in between those. When you put those words in the middle of a sentence, separate them with commas. In blue, the camouflage of the lioness makes her invisible to her prey so she can concentrate on whatever. Remember fanboys? For, and, nor, and the, but, yet, or, and so. Here's the word so. Comma in front of fanboys. Next one in pink, many, many years. Whenever you repeat something for emphasis to make it stronger, you put a comma between the two of them. Like many, comma, many years. Big, comma, very big, or whatever it is. In yellow here, most fish are darker on the top than the bottom. That's a semicolon there after the word bottom. A semicolon with a dot on top and a comma underneath separates two main clauses. You could also use a comma and say and, but another way to do it is to use a semicolon. So most fish are darker on the top than on the bottom. Okay, semicolon. Okay, that's first main clause. From above, they look like the land at the bottom of the water. All right, that is the second main clause. They look like the land at the bottom of the water. And the from above is separated because it comes in front of the subject, they. And the next thing, and from below, now and, fanboys, comma in front of and from below, comma, they, subject, comma after anything that precedes the subject of a main clause. Here we go, an ocean mackerel, for example. All right, for example, it's thrown in between the subject and the verb. An ocean mackerel is the subject, is the verb, and then the rest of the sentence. So you throw in for example right there in the middle, and you put commas around it. You can throw in words anywhere in the sentence as long as you put commas around it. The result is because they look just like their surroundings. All right, because they look just like their surroundings is an adverb clause. And the result is has a comma after it because it comes in front of the subject of the main clause, these fish. And the comma is also there because you have the word because they look just like their surroundings. That's an adverb clause. In summary, comma, of course you know that, after all these transitions that come in front of the subject. And then the pink sentence, the mother bird that is invisible among the brown leaves, the mother bird which is invisible among the brown leaves, that is another way of saying which. The lion sleeps on the sandy plain, lion sleeping on the sandy plains, comma, and the fish that hides among the pebbles. So you have three things: mother bird, lion, and fish. That's a comma in lists. You have three things, and then you get the verb, which is will live to see another day. So there are three things in the subject here: the mother bird, the lion, and the fish. Okay, all those three are the subject of the word will live to see another day. That was a fast little review of a few points of punctuation. We'll do a lot more punctuation in the last 2 weeks of this class, but right now I thought I'd give you the little introduction to the reasons why you use punctuation. And that's where I need those words that we studied in the beginning: the independent clause, the dependent clause, and the types of dependent clauses. Thanks a lot. See you later.